All right, welcome to We the Blueprint with my co-host Ant. We got a special guest today, Samuel Glickman. We're here at Bravado Grooming. Is it Bravado Grooming by Sam?
Bravado Grooming. Yeah.
Just Bravado Grooming.
Bravado Grooming.
Okay.
I'm trying to sit cool, so just don't mind me.
So tell everybody about this space we're in right now.
Well, right now we're actually sitting on the new event space we have here in the back, which is basically a 800 square foot deck with a nice little bar. Just a little added addition to the barbershop, bring in some extra revenues. We'll also be hosting workshops and little small entities, little small intimate parties. But other than that, this is, our way of just kind of being creative, around what we do for a living, right? Other than that, the barbershop is split up into 7 different hybrid suites. And so everybody has 80 square feet of working space. We still have the camaraderie of the barbershop with exclusivity at the same time. Location-wise, we are in the most historical area in Atlanta. This is the west side of Atlanta. It's better known to most as Vine City. Right across the street is English Ave, so I'm really on the borderline of Vine City and English Avenue. Martin Luther King's house is literally probably 10, I can't the exact number, but 10 to 15 houses down on the right, down there, which is not the house he was born at. Everybody thinks Martin Luther King, his house where he was raised was on Auburn Avenue, which is where he was born and raised, but the house where he raised his kids, the house that got shot up, the house where a cross was burned in his front yard, that's right here on Sunset. Right next door to that house is where Maynard Jackson was born. A lot of people don't know that. Also, Gladys Knight was born right here on Sunset and Magnolia. Very first civil rights meeting that ever took place in the South took place right here on Sunset in this little house right across the street from the building right here. It's called the Castle. So a lot of history right here on the west side. We're literally a quarter mile away from downtown. We're in the process of revitalization. So yeah, a lot of good stuff going on over here. I'm raising the standard for black commerce on the west side. Trying to bring it back to what it was first or originally known for back in the day. This was our Black Wall Street over here in Atlanta. This is where all the black businesses were. So yeah.
Well, we still new to podcasting, so forgive me, but I guess we need to backtrack.
Okay. No. Listen, man, we're free.
Sam Glickman. I'm not gonna say world-renowned barber, but a world-renowned barber.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
You've been cutting how long?
This is year 28 for me.
Okay, yeah. 28. So just to give a little background, it's out there on the internet for people that want to look it up. I don't want you to get the whole story because I've seen it in other podcast videos or whatever. But you from Pasadena?
Originally from Pasadena, California.
Right. Mother of a politician. Yeah. Okay. And what's interesting is you actually had the keys to the shop at 18 years old.
Yeah. I was handed the keys.
Right.
So, of course, we're in the city right now. We're outside, so that bus.
Right.
But yeah, I was handed the keys at 18 years old. I had no clue what ownership was about.
And you dropped out, right?
High school dropout. Yeah, I dropped out of high school. I was going to barber school actually in high school at the same time. I got my barber license the end of my junior year and decided I was not going back to school my senior year.
Okay.
I was firm about that. So,
and how did that play out? With your mom?
Oh, mom's wasn't having it. Nah, mom's was not having it, man. But you know what? What's crazy about that is my mom supported me in this. She knew I was going to be successful in this. She started grooming me as an owner at 13. And so although I was being dropped off at the barbershop as a kid and growing up in that environment, my mother turned my basement into a barbershop.
Okay.
Because she didn't want us cutting hair in the kitchen. At that time, I had 2 other friends that I influenced into cutting hair as well, and so it was 3 of us. And so she built the barbershop in the basement, man. When I say built, that means she just bought some mirrors and some lights and some stools,
right,
and gave us the space, man. And so at 13, I technically was managing a barbershop, even though we weren't really making any money.
right.
But I was in control of the atmosphere, you know. And lo and behold, is what I made a decision then that I was going to go to barber school. So they finally allowed me to go to barber school at 15. Back then, you only had to be 7th grade educated. You didn't have to have a high school diploma or a GED, so I was just fortunate. And it took me 2.5 years because I was going part-time. So I was putting in a couple hours a day, 5 days a week, going after school. When I finally graduated, I made it up in my mind. I didn't realize, I came to this conclusion that really school wasn't going to do anything for me. I'm a licensed barber now. I already knew what I wanted to do. So I dropped out. Mom's wasn't having it.
But what did
nothing she could do about it.
So she took you to the barbershop every weekend, I guess. Every weekend.
Yeah.
So what do you think was going on?
I mean, you know what? I think in her mind though, her dropping me off at the
trouble or?
Well, not even that, man. I think in her mind it was us being exposed to men.
Okay.
And so, you know, the culture of the barbershop back then, it's a little different now. But the culture of the barbershop back then was if you wanted to be a man, you needed to be around men.
Right.
And where was the best place to do that? At the barbershop. Right? And so every kind of a man that you can think of is going to come in that barbershop. So I think that was really her. My father wasn't in the picture. So, you know, well, let me say this. He was in the picture, but he wasn't in the picture. I knew him. We actually saw him every now and then and would hang out to a degree. Great man, just wasn't a great parent, you know, at that time. And so, you know, my mother raised us, man. And her idea of exposing us to manhood, I think, was the barbershop. So yeah, I don't even think she was thinking, okay, I hope they become barbers one day, or what if they become barbers to get influence? Because my brother didn't go that route.
Okay.
You know, she was dropping both of us off.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was just the influence of a white smock, heavy starched, dress slacks, dress shoes, cash money wrapped in a rubber band, seeing the barbers hand people their cash back.
Right.
You know, unfolding that money, that was really the influence. Like, I thought they were the coolest people in the world. So, yeah, it was inevitable for me. I was destined to be this.
Yeah. So, the guys that were in the shop with you, how was that? How did you overcome that obstacle of, you know, them feeling some kind of way?
So
this young boy.
Yeah, they took over the shop.
Yeah.
But you know what? It was no surprise. It was more disrespect. They knew that was going to be my shop one day.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was destined. I mean, I was that guy already in the community. I was the one cutting all the young folks. I had the reputation. I was already that guy. I was working in there on the weekends. You know, it was just a matter of time. And they didn't know that the old men were actually retiring at that particular time either. Although they should have known, they were 83 and 86 years old.
Got to do a nice little snake drive.
It was more of a disrespect thing. It wasn't anything that they took out on me. It was more of how they felt about the two gentlemen that gave me the shot.
Oh, okay.
But it was awkward on my side.
Right.
So it wasn't awkward for them. It was awkward on my side because I was forced to have to do business. I was the one having to collect rent. I was the one having to conduct at 18 years old and conduct with people that had been there for years. Yeah, here I am, this young dude taking over a shop, you know. So the awkwardness was on me.
Yeah,
it was on me.
So it was no problems with grown men taking money.
Nah.
That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, there was a standard there.
Yeah.
I mean, booth rent was so cheap back then either, so it was nothing to pay booth rent.
Yeah.
You know how much my booth rent was back then?
How much?
It was $50.
And this is what year?
This was that was in 1994.
94, okay.
$50, man. So, you know.
How much was cuts?
Cuts back then, we were $8, man.
Okay.
$8 haircuts. So, you know, yeah. And walk-in environment. Yeah. So yeah, it was cheap. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't.
So this ain't really relatable just from my own, in my own mind. I'm picturing a young Sam, maybe flashy in my mind at that time.
Extremely flamboyant.
So what's the first car you bought?
I had a '79 coupe. Yeah, gold with a half white vinyl. The half white vinyl, the moon roof. I had the 30 spoke trues and modes. Yeah, I was. Yeah, you couldn't tell me shit. Excuse my language.
Right.
You couldn't tell me nothing back then. Yeah. So yeah, flashy for sure.
Yeah.
That was my first car, man.
So how many barbers was it on?
6. Yeah, there was 7 of us total. 7 of us total. Yeah. And you know what was crazy is the shop paid for itself. You know how much the barbershop rent was? $300 a month.
94.
In 1994, in the hood, the barbershop rent was $300 a month.
And how long did you had that shop?
So from 94, I sold it in 99.
But I'm thinking back at 18, making all this money.
Well, it wasn't really a lot of money, you know, but it was
18-year-old.
For an 18-year-old,
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Compared to your
18-year-old.
compared to your homies.
Yeah, for sure. 18, you know, haircuts were $8 back then. You know how many hairs we used to have to do to you know.
Right.
But yeah, I remember the day I couldn't wait to make $1,000 a week. That was a big deal. Like when I make $1,000 a week, I'm gonna be rich. Like I used to think that way at 18 years old.
Right.
But what year?
You know.
But what year did you start making $1,000?
You know what? I took the fast track. So probably before I moved out here. Yeah. It probably took me a couple years to do that. Yeah. Back then, man, we would do, you know, literally over 100 heads a week. Easy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say.
Walk-ins.
Being an 18-year-old, your stamina was different. Your responsibilities.
Yeah.
So,
but you know, that's crazy because my work ethic is still the same today.
Yeah.
Which is why I can put in 52 hours of work a week, and it doesn't really feel like I'm putting in 52 hours of work. You know,
Right.
I don't know. I'm just kind of built like that. You know, I've been doing 6 o'clock in the morning since 1994. Since 1994, yeah. And I don't know if you've ever heard the story about why I do 6 in the morning, how I first started with that. So that same barbershop I inherited, the very first Saturday, which was a big deal in a walk-in barbershop back then, the very first Saturday of me being an owner, the door said 8 o'clock. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be at that shop on time. So I got there at 7:30. When I got there, the whole parking lot was full. See, back then, the first person that pulled up in the parking lot was the first person that was going to get a haircut. So they would start pulling up in the parking lot about 5:30 in the morning to make sure they were going to be first, right? What I didn't realize is that the barbers that I inherited the shop from had been opening up that shop every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock. Even though the door said 8.
Right.
So
you was still late.
There was a standard that had been set.
Yeah.
I was super late, man. I got cussed out. From the time I got out the car to the time I walked to the door and opened it up, they let me have it. You know, you ain't ready for this. I mean, they let me have it.
Yeah.
From that day on, I said I'm gonna be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
Yeah.
So fast forward to coming here to Atlanta.
Yeah.
You leaving somewhere, we got plenty of clientele. You the man, so to speak. How was it starting over?
It was a challenge. So when I moved here in '99, I moved out here with my wife. Then I had 2 sons. My wife was pregnant with my daughter. And yeah, I sold the shop, believe it or not, for nothing. I sold it for $5,000. So I moved out here with $5,000, a pregnant wife, and 2 kids, and absolutely no clients.
You pretty much just sold the equipment.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't own the building, you know.
Right.
And so when I moved out here, man, I was never afraid of the challenge of building clientele, which is why I moved out here. Because I felt like this culture was more complementing to my style of work and the way I wanted to grow, what I expected out of my career, you know, further down the line. Atlanta was really that spot. I wasn't intimidated, not one bit. I would say it probably took me about 6 months to get established. So it always seems like, man, God always places me in the right place with the right set of skills, with the right personality at the right time, you know, and it's always the right person. Dale Bronner just happened to be my first client when I moved to Atlanta. And from cutting Dale, I ended up cutting Bishop Long. From there, you know, my clientele really just took off. I started doing their members, their leadership. This is way before social media or anything. I've never had to pass out business cards or flyers. From day one, you know, it was destined for me to be here. It was nothing for me to build a clientele. And we were in Stockbridge, Georgia. Stockbridge, Georgia. There was no black barbershops in Stockbridge, Georgia. We were the first ones. Me and a gentleman by the name of Tyrone Grant. So, yeah. Was it an obstacle? Yeah. Was I intimidated? No. Yeah, I wasn't intimidated. Not one bit.
So give me the timeline after Stockbridge. Where'd you go?
I stayed in Stockbridge. So I expanded from there. I opened up the first Salon Suites, which was Sweet Styles, what the name of it was. That was on, actually that was in Jonesboro, so it was down the street.
Okay.
In Jonesboro. I didn't last 10 months.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because I told you on the phone that nowadays entrepreneurship is sexy.
Yeah.
And everybody talks about the grind, everybody talks about the hustle. Nobody talks about sometimes when it's time to fold up and not necessarily quit, but just to maybe take a step back and regroup and start over. You know, everybody talks about, you know, oh, you're not doing this, or you ain't doing this many hours, you ain't making this amount of money, you know, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be, because with the suites, you were really ahead of your time, right?
I was. There were absolutely no salon suites in Atlanta, so it was an obstacle just trying to lease them out, you know. But I'll say this, you know, entrepreneurship is sexy. You know, entrepreneurship is what everybody seeks after right now, and rightfully so. They should be.
Right.
However, just because something isn't working doesn't mean that it's a failure. You know, just because something's not working doesn't mean that you can't start over.
Right.
And I think something gets lost in the timing of from the time that you open and assessing it to the time where you realize you're struggling and that you're not going to be able to get out of this. And the only option is to close, right? I told you I didn't last 10 months. I shouldn't have lasted 6 months. My ego kept it open an additional 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay? And so with my ego keeping it open an additional 4 months, I was afraid of what everybody else was going to think about this $70,000 investment that I put into this business. Not to mention this was my life savings. So my wife, who was at the house at that time with 3 kids, because my daughter had been born, she was now pregnant with my 4th child. So yeah, pregnant with my 4th child. And here I am investing my entire life savings, but watch this. I actually talked one of my clients into investing with me. And so between all of what I had plus what he invested with me, I totaled up to a little over $70,000, man. Beautiful space. And $70,000 in 2001. I'm sorry, 2001, 2002. That's a lot of money.
Right.
You know, to put into a space. And, you know, when I say ego, you know, trying to face your wife, going home and being looked at as the guy that spent your entire life savings and we pregnant with another child on the way.
Right.
You know, and 3 children at the house, and she's a housewife and not bringing in any revenues. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. And so psychologically, you want to exhaust every effort. Unfortunately, when you're in the midst of a struggle like that and things aren't working, it's extremely hard to be creative. Right. And so that's when you have to be faced with assessing the decision to hold it or fold it.
Right.
And so it was a big learning lesson, man, for me. I realized that when I finally made the decision to fold it, it was a huge burden lifter.
Right.
But prior to me making the decision, what helped it is me explaining to my wife that either I can fold it now and regroup and take care of home, or I can to try to sustain this, and we lose everything. You know, and it was a common sense decision. You know, it was more of why are you still in there?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know, the other thing I was facing is having to maintain a relationship with the person who believed in my vision and decided to invest his money in with it. And how am I going to maintain that relationship, knowing that I'm not going to be in a position to pay him back? And not only am I not going to be in a position to back, I'm not going to propose an alternative to pay him back,
Right.
because I didn't have it. You know, at that time, it was time for me to focus on my family. We both lost.
Right.
And so, it was a learning lesson. I discovered then, man, that it was so much freedom and release and just letting go. And from that day, man, I've never been afraid to start something because I'm not afraid to fold it if it's not working. If something's not working, I'm letting it go. The difference is I don't let it go that long. I assess everything. You know.
What are some of the things you assess?
From a simplicity, from a simple standpoint, let's just use this business for instance. In my first 30 days, I had projections. Did I meet those projections? Based on the analytics, did I have the amount of clients walking through the door that I projected? And based upon those clients, how many of them came back? Did I have the amount of barbers in here to lease from me within the first 30 days that I expected? And if I didn't, how was that going to affect my business? One of the things that I went into this with is capital. I knew my capital was my business that I already had previously established on my own. So regardless to what this building could generate, I knew what I could personally generate, which is something I couldn't say back then. Right? So going into this, if all else fails, I know I can handle this. I gave myself a timeline. How long do I want to handle this by myself? How long do I want to sacrifice from my household and my income to sustain something that's not working? And so I gave myself a 6-month period, right? This was a little bit different because based upon what I was personally making, which is good money, I was willing to take some bigger risks. So what was I willing to do to stand on my own 2 feet without having an investor? Because I never want to go through that again. What was I willing to do to stand on my own 2 feet without having a partner? Because I knew I didn't want to do that. My wife was my partner, right? So if there was going to be a partner, it was going to be my wife at this point. So what was I willing to do to stand on my own 2 feet? Well, I was willing to take out some loans, right? Based upon what my revenues were and what I was generating, I was able to borrow a significant amount. And I was putting myself in a position not only to pay the rent, but also to take care of those loans.
Right.
And so that 6 months was real. If I didn't generate the revenues I needed to generate within those 6 months, I was going to make a decision. But that decision was going to be based upon a 30-day assessment every 30 days. So every 30 days, even though my common sense said, yeah, we had X amount of people come here, yeah, we were making money, I needed to see it for myself on paper. Thank God we have software now. It's something we didn't have back then. Right? So we have software. In my case, I use Squire. And so I have all the analytics before me. I can see what every barber is doing. I can see what I'm generating. I can see what I'm even paying out now in commissions or in booth rent or in suite rental. I can set it up however I want to set it up within our system. And so analytically, every 30 days, this business was being assessed. So that's just from a simple standpoint. I won't give myself 6 months to assess my business. I'm giving myself 6 months to make a decision, but that's going to be based upon a monthly assessment. Right. So I need to see 6 months of growth, right? Or 6 months of going the opposite direction, and that'll determine whether I need to make a decision. And 6 months is realistic, especially if you have the capital to sustain it. So, yeah. But watch this: just because you have it to sustain it doesn't mean that you need to keep sustaining it. It doesn't make sense feeding, a pit bull that's never going to grow, right? If I buy a pit bull at 6 weeks and I'm expecting him to grow to 100 pounds, and he's not growing to 100 pounds, he's not growing past 20 pounds, and he's at 8 months, he must be sick. Right. Something ain't right. Yeah. I'm going to stop feeding this dog. So it's, I don't know if that's a good analogy, but That's my mindset. It's
Right.
like, you know, we're bulldogs when it comes to business. If it's not working, you got to be bold enough to shut it down, right? Or shelf it. The thing is you can't put yourself in a position where you're struggling so much that the creativity is not there. And it's impossible, man. It's really hard to be creative because you're battling different things from a mental health standpoint.
Right.
When you're in the midst of a struggle, trying to take care of home, trying to take care of a business, trying to take care of your clients, you know, trying to show face. It's too different. And then you got to be creative outside of that.
Yeah.
It's rough. And so only the strong survive.
Yeah.
But you survive by making some serious decisions. You know.
And you said you touched on something when you said mental health. We talk about it all the time that the barbershop is probably one of the greatest places of misinformation that there is, you know. And what I like about the Sweet situation is, you know, you're a guy, you got some sense on your head. So if a guy comes in, he's dealing with something, he's talking to you and pretty much you alone. You know what I mean? You're a good guy, you can give him some advice. Whereas in our situation, you know, we're in a typical shop, you know, 6 chairs. So if somebody come in with a situation, before he or I can say anything, somebody chime in with something stupid, you know, might be having an issue with his wife or whatever, you know.
Right.
Before you can say anything, man, you need to leave. You don't need to take care of him. Like, hold up, brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
you know, I really think that as barbers, we have to really take our position serious and really think. Because, you know, a lot of times we just take it as playful banner, but some people are like really coming in. You know, they exclusively not just coming to you for the cut, but they coming in, you know, Sam can give you something.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that, right? Because men traditionally don't like to open up anyway. So the barbershop has always been the safe haven event. Sometimes in their joking, they're being real, right? But they try to come off like they're joking because they're in the midst of other men.
Right.
But, you know, it's also been that space where we aren't necessarily prepped to counsel. You know, or we don't feel like we're in a position to counsel, right? And so for our culture, I can't speak for every other culture, but for our culture, it's one thing to be a man and dealing with that. It's another thing to be a black man and dealing with that, because we feel like we have all the answers. We feel like we can handle it. We feel like we can deal with it. We feel like we can fix it. And there has never really been that great example of what fixed looks like, right? Everybody's situation is different. And so, you know, to get answers out of the barbershop, sometimes it comes off as a subliminal joke.
Right.
And you're hoping to get answers out of that because you don't want it to be real, right? But now we're getting a little woke. Now we're becoming aware. Now we realize that there is such a thing called mental health. So much so that it's a popular word. You know, it's a popular phrase. You know, we got to take care of our mental health.
Right.
You know, it's not just our physical, but it's our mental. Dude, we're like counselors. We're like psychiatrists. You know, we take on so many different conversations throughout the day. We never realize that we're actually taking all of that home with us. You know, yeah, we take a lot of that home with us, man. And if our home structure isn't straight, now we're compounding stress. The stress from the job, the stress from the house.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
And we're compounding that. You know what I'm saying? And if we're not strong mentally, bro, we'll shut down.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a thing that's common now. I'm glad it's being talked about. Right, we're partnering up with a group this weekend actually. That's actually educating barbers on how to conduct mental health conversations, which I thought was unique. You know, so they're actually partnering up with us. They're going to give us literature, but they're also going to give literature to our clients that helps them feel free about elaborating to the barbers, right? Letting them know that this is a safe space. You know, so I'm just glad that it's being talked about. It's being talked about. It's being discussed. You know, man, there's so much that we're becoming familiar with now concerning our bodies, our diets, our mental health, our psyche. You know.
But as a barber, I got this question: what is our relief?
Yeah, you know, that's to each his own, right? So you have to find that. My relief is waking up on Saturday mornings now, and my wife loves to cook me breakfast.
Tell me why Saturday mornings.
Well, Saturday, it's just Saturday. Now it's psychological, right? My wife is off every Saturday and Sunday. She goes back to work on Monday. So just being able to share those same 2 days off with her.
You off too on Saturday.
I'm off on Saturday, right? Which is a decision I just recently made. That was my attempt for work-life balance in 2021, right? And so for 2021, I wanted to wake up next to my wife on a Saturday morning for psychological reasons. I wanted to see what it felt like. Now it's different when you take a vacation and you miss a Saturday.
Right.
But now knowing that Friday is the last day of your work week, and that you're gonna actually wake up to your wife, and if you're not married, that you're actually sleeping in on a Saturday morning for psychological purposes or whatever it is. It's just a different feeling, right? Versus waking up on a Monday knowing your wife done went to work and knowing everybody else is at work, and you don't have a weekend. It's something about the weekend, right? And so for the first time in 28 years, bro, I feel like I actually have a weekend. So that was my attempt for work-life balance, but also mental health. Because without that balance, without that little bit of psyche right there, I think I'm more of the same, right? And doing the same old thing and expecting a different result really defines as what? Insanity.
Right.
And so, I want to be sane, bro. I got 4 kids. I got a granddaughter. I got a grandson on the way in March.
Okay.
I need to be sane. So It's not just a matter of me wanting to. I need to. I have to be. I'm not just trying to make money and build all of this stuff. I talked about buying all this land behind here and develop. I'm not just doing that for my psyche.
Right.
I'm trying to build generational wealth. And so that's one of the things that helps me go to sleep at night. You know how hard it is to go to sleep at night knowing that all that you're working for is just going towards your bills? That's an uncomfortable, yeah, but it's an uncomfortable feeling, right?
Yeah.
And so to feel like everything I'm working for is just paying bills and I have nothing left to build generational wealth, that's tough, bro.
Yeah, so let's talk about generational wealth. So you got 4 kids.
Mm-hmm. And a granddaughter and a grandson.
Okay.
So 6. 6C.
Are they interested in the barbering business?
None of them. None of them.
Do you want your sons?
At one time, I thought it would be cool. What I'm more concerned about now, so barbering is what I do, it's not who I am. Right? My kids see me as an entrepreneur. They see me as a serial entrepreneur now. They're influenced by my entrepreneurial thought process. So much so that my 2 oldest sons are entrepreneurs. Okay, so my oldest son is in real estate. He's also into real estate investing now. He does work a full-time job, but that's his thing, real estate. So this land that I'm actually buying back here, he's actually the agent for it.
Okay.
He's actually doing all the negotiations. He's actually learning through this process. And he'll be my partner in this development as well.
Right.
And so that's the first phase. My other son is actually in the junk removal business. He has 2 trucks, 2 trailers, and doesn't even have enough time to get a haircut. That's how busy this guy is. But where did they get that from?
Right.
What made them want to graduate from school and say, I want to open up my own business?
Right.
It's a learned behavior. That's all they know.
Right.
Is entrepreneurship, right? My daughter, however, has in her mind that she's not going to open up a business, but she's going to work for one of us. So it's
so it's all in the family.
It's all in the family. It's already in her mind. My youngest son says, I'm going to school. Well, why are you going to school, son? I really want to know why you're going to school.
Right.
And what you taking up? I'm taking up business. Well, what are you taking up in business? I want to be a financial analyst. Why? Because I want to assess your business. He always hears me use the word assess.
Right.
So automatically now he's just using this word assess as if he knows what he's talking about.
Right.
But obviously he has some sense enough to know that if my business is going to grow, I'm going to need his knowledge.
Right.
So to be smart enough at 18 to say, one day I'm going to take over your business, I'm going to run it.
Right.
That's a blessing to me. It makes me feel like what I'm doing now is not in vain.
Right.
All of it, I got to go harder now because I got to have something for him to take over, right?
Yeah.
I got to go harder now because I need my son to be able to handle this real estate deal because there's going to be more to come.
Right.
I got to go harder now because, you know, with all of this real estate, my son having this junk removal business, I need him to remove all the debris.
Right.
I need him to have these contracts, you know, and so it's just.
So they don't have to be interested in the barbering business.
No.
Because what you have is
Barbering
real
is-
estate.
barbering
The
is
building
what-
can house anything.
Exactly. Barbering is what I do.
Right.
It's not who I am. It's not who we are as a family.
Right.
We're entrepreneurs, you know, and so, which is why I started the company Blackcom.
Okay.
Blackcom is short for Black Commerce. I'm so in love and so psyched and so hungry for Black commerce that I want to see Black people win.
Right.
Starting with me, starting with my family. I mentioned the book, Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice, right? Of all the great stories that we read about of Black success, one of the things that we can't take away from those stories are family inheritances. So with all the success, we can count on one hand how many Black families in America actually left a real inheritance, and their kids are actually still running that inheritance. We can count it on one hand. Out of all the Black success stories in the entire country,
Why is that?
it's because we didn't know. It's
Is that on the parents' end or is that on the kids' end?
It's
Or a little bit of
both. It's both.
Yeah.
It's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
It's nobody selling a dream. It's not even realizing that you have a dream to sell.
Right.
You know, you got to think about how many of our grandparents were uneducated. You know, I talk about how I'm a high school dropout. Well, that's normal for my grandfather. You know, that's normal for his father. That's normal for all of our grandparents. You know, that was a real thing.
Right.
To take care of the family. You know, and so it becomes abnormal in a time where we've been taught to graduate from high school and go get this college degree so that you can go get a job and work for somebody else. We were never painted the picture that we can actually work for ourselves. Not only that, but Dad, you can take over my company.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dad, I can take over your company, or son, you can take over my company. I got a guy here that sells all of my janitorial goods. Paper towels, tissue. He's been doing this since I've been here for the last 20 years. Mr. Lewis. He doesn't just take care of me, he takes care of a lot of Black businesses around here. Watch this. Mr. Lewis has absolutely no employees. Mr. Lewis is 76 years old now. Still dropping off these paper towels and this tissue. How many Black folks do you know that are managing linen companies? Managing these janitorial supplies? Working for these huge companies that are furnishing these restaurants, right? And here it is, Mr. Lewis all by himself, doesn't have anybody to pass this business on to. His kids are off being attorneys and being everything else. Thought what he was doing wasn't impressionable.
Right.
But here he is, during the pandemic, was the only one that had supplies. But in a couple of years, who is that business going to be passed on to?
Yeah.
I have 2 clients right now that manage businesses just like him, but those businesses are owned by white people.
Right.
As a matter of fact, one of them is a Fortune 500 company. And they're so concerned about scaling up in those companies, they haven't even thought about a business that they can actually take over and do the same exact thing as the companies they work for. So it's naive. Like nobody's painting the picture, right? And so it's easy for me to say, hey, Mr. Lewis, I want to introduce you to this person right here. Mr. Lewis, this person can take your business to the next level.
Right.
This person right here, I can sell them on the concept of taking over Mr. Lewis' business, so much so that they actually have the money to buy it, right? But I can almost guarantee you this, Mr. Lewis probably would not sell it.
Right.
Because he doesn't understand
Right.
the big picture. And so it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Nobody's painting the picture for us. You know, so why did I start Blackcom? Because it's time that the picture gets painted. I need to paint the picture of what Black commerce looks like. Just because you're Black and you have a business doesn't mean that I'm supposed to support you.
Right.
There are a lot of Black businesses that don't deserve our revenues, right? They don't deserve our commerce. They don't deserve it. But there are a whole lot of them that do, and we need to be familiar with them. So much so that we should be looking into the interests of those companies. We should be trying to invest in those companies. We should be trying to talk them out of some of these companies or scaling them up or taking them to another level. But we don't have these conversations. We don't even seek after them. We're so busy trying to buy Apple stock. We're so busy worrying about how much Tesla is scaling up. We're so focused on what they're doing. But we got community businesses, man, that if we just spent 30 minutes a day with them, man, we got millionaires right here.
Just touched on some toes with that
I
apple.
mean, but it's real, and I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
Right, we're all guilty of it, bro. But it's this: our investment dollars can be channeled in so many different directions.
Right.
Right. This development, we're building not just because we're capable of building townhomes and lofts, but we're building it because we got to get ahead of gentrification. We had to be the first ones to say, this is not gentrification over here. This is revitalization,
Right.
starting with black commerce. Are we going to have retail here? Of course. Guess who that retail is going to be occupied by? Black commerce. You know how many black franchise owners want to do business on the west side, but the west side isn't appealing right now. So who's going to cater to them? We've worked hard to buy franchises, but we can't even open them up on our own side of town.
Right.
Why is that? So there are a whole lot of things that I think we need to discuss in the sense of commerce, but nobody, again, is painting the picture. And I think we have a responsibility to do so, man. We have resources now. You know how easy it is for us to start a company? You know how easy it is for you guys to start this podcast and us to generate this dialogue? It's that easy nowadays.
Right.
We used to get persecuted for these conversations.
Right.
We used to get hung for these kind of how dare you try to build something in Rosewood?
Right.
How dare you try to build something in Tulsa, Oklahoma? How dare you try to build something in Charleston, South Carolina? How dare you own the docks in Charleston, South Carolina? How dare you own the rail yards in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Like, these things are things we used to get hung for. Our neighborhoods got burnt down. They got, people got lynched for being common, for being relevant, for being, provocative in a good way. Like, to provoke commerce in your own community. Bro, that's genius.
Right.
But they didn't want us to win. And so now we're in a time where there is no excuse. We're banking black, right? We're borrowing black. We're lending black. 3 different things there.
Yeah.
But we're able to do that. Listen, when we go and fill out a credit report to get a loan now, it has nothing to do with our color. It has everything to do with the algorithm. There is no loan committee anymore. We used to go to a bank, we used to have to submit a whole business plan, and then the bank would have to take that to the loan committee, and they would have to decipher whether this business plan is good enough to invest in, right?
Right.
And based upon your color, they would really make a decision. Now, we don't have to go through that. It's all about our credit.
Right.
So the whole myth of we don't have equal opportunity, I don't know where that comes from, because we have it. Are we taking advantage of it?
So when it relates to our business, what are the things that
our business, as in the barber business,
as in the barber business, what are the things that you would recommend or that you would like to see for us to do to gain? Because pretty much we talk about is ownership.
Yeah.
What are some things that we need to do?
Yeah. So
to move that forward.
Yeah. Stretch our thought process by engaging in more business conversations. Right. Increasing our network. By networking with people outside of the industry, right, which is the first step of diversification. All right, you just can't hang around barbers,
right?
Because if you just hang around barbers, and if you don't notice, in Clubhouse, if you just go into the chat rooms where it's just barbers and beauticians, all you're gonna be talking about is barber stuff, but you got to tap into some other networks. You got to tap into some other resources. Our clientele base is our first resource, right? So establishing those relationships, building on those relationships, tapping into, I'm hosting a fundraiser for Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, because she's running for mayor again. Where did that come from? Well, it came from a client.
Yeah.
A client knowing and understanding what I'm trying to do, that understands how things work. And guess what he says? You need to host a fundraiser. You need to gather all the black entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in the city of Atlanta, and you need to introduce them to Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. She needs to be familiar with young black entrepreneurs that want to have a voice in the city.
Okay.
You know how easy it is for me to do that? Based upon my general network, starting with the Georgia Barbers Network, that's real easy to do. So it's little things like that. Like, that information came by way of me tapping in. But now I'm going to go on and host this fundraiser. Well, who else am I going to meet at this fundraiser?
Right.
And what kind of status is that really going to put me in now as a fundraiser for the highest position in our city? Of a major city of 6 million plus. What does that do? Influential on the west side of Atlanta. A young entrepreneur. That makes me more than a barber now. right? That makes me more than a barbershop owner.
Right.
Now we're talking commerce. Now we're talking politics. Now we're talking a voice. We have a voice, which means that our investment dollars aren't in vain. You know, for the first time in the history of my entire adult life, I feel like my vote actually counted. And I'm talking general election now. That then turned around and resulted into U.S. Senate by way of 2 Georgia senators and us being able to vote them in by the power of our vote.
Right.
For the first time in my entire adult life, my vote actually counted because we've been living in a red state.
Yeah.
So every single year we go into voting with hopes, only to come out with our state still being red and us feeling like our vote didn't count. But yet we still go in every single year out of respect for our forefathers and out of the optimism of what could be. For the first time, here we are with power, right? And so how do we leverage that? Here we are with a fundraiser. Here we are now with a voice. So it's little things. So I would say we have to increase our network. We have to tap into our resources. We have to become more than just what we do, right? What we do is cutting hair. That's what we do. But that's not who we are. And if you just get stuck with I'm just a barber, I think you're missing out. You're doing your family a disjustice. You're doing yourself a disjustice. You're doing your community a disjustice. Man, you know, the white smock meant something at one point in time. You were a tonsorial artist, which means you did more than just cut hair.
Right.
You know, that was you remember back in the day when you watched those older movies, the veterinarian was also the dentist. The dentist was also the barber.
Right.
The barber was also the mechanic. He was everything. He was doing everything. You know, we're more than just that. You know, and it starts with our influence, man. Obviously, we have people coming to our community establishments. We have some type of influence, right? This is a community-oriented business. We have to leverage that as barbers. So we have more power than what we think. We just have to think outside of the box. So we have to stretch that thought process.
Yeah. You got any questions? I think we can end that right there. Man, we're gonna have to do a part 2.
Let's do it.
We're gonna do a part 2.
It's healthy, bro.